A rain team had triggered a chain of explosive tags along the ridge while trying to force Team 7 out of cover. The first explosion split the trees behind Naruto and threw him off his feet. He hit one branch, then another, and dropped through a curtain of leaves into a narrow ravine. For several seconds, he could hear nothing except dirt sliding beneath his sandals and the distant crash of fighting above him. Sasuke and Sakura were somewhere beyond the ridge. Naruto pushed himself up, checked that his forehead protector was still tied in place, and started climbing. Then, a scream came from deeper in the ravine. Naruto stopped. A red-haired girl in a grass forehead protector was trapped against the roots of a fallen tree. One lens of her dark-framed glasses was cracked. One leg had collapsed under her, and blood darkened her sleeve. In front of her, an enormous striped forest cat lowered its body and prepared to spring. Naruto had never seen the girl before. He did not know her name, her team, or why no one was protecting her. None of that mattered when the animal jumped. Naruto formed the hand sign for Shadow Clone Jutsu and filled the ravine with orange. The first 3 clones were torn apart almost immediately. The cat was larger than a horse and fast enough to turn before the smoke from the destroyed clones had cleared. Naruto sent 4 more at its face, while the real Naruto ran along the ravine wall. One clone caught a claw across the chest and vanished. Another grabbed the animal's ear and was thrown into a tree. The last 2 landed on its back and forced its head down for half a second. Naruto kicked off the wall and drove both feet into the side of the animal's jaw. The impact did not knock it unconscious. It did make the beast stumble sideways. Naruto landed badly, rolled through wet leaves, and felt a claw tear across the outside of his forearm before another wave of clones piled onto the animal. The red-haired girl stared at him as if he had made a serious mistake. Naruto grabbed a broken branch, jammed it beneath the fallen trunk beside her, and ordered 4 clones to lift. The wood rose just enough for her to drag her injured leg free. The forest cat recovered and charged again. This time, Naruto did not try to overpower it. He sent clones in opposite directions, each throwing stones and shouting. The animal turned toward the nearest movement. Naruto used the opening to pull the girl onto his back and run up the ravine path. The cat followed for almost 100 meters before one of Naruto's clones led it toward the territory of a giant boar. The forest erupted behind them with a roar, a squeal, and the sound of trees breaking. Naruto kept running until the girl struck his shoulder with one weak fist. He finally stopped beneath a shelf of rock. She demanded that he put her down. Naruto ignored the demand until he saw that her face had gone gray. He lowered her beside the rock and inspected the damage as well as a 12-year-old genin could. Her ankle was badly swollen. A cut near her shoulder had stopped bleeding, but the bandage around it was dirty. Her breathing was shallow from exhaustion rather than a chest wound. What worried Naruto most were the old marks on her arms. Small scars covered both forearms in patterns too regular to come from battle. The girl noticed him looking and pulled her sleeves down. Naruto tore a strip from the inside of his jacket to wrap his own bleeding arm. She watched him for several seconds, then told him he could heal faster if he bit her. Naruto thought he had heard wrong. She exposed her forearm again and explained with the flat voice of someone describing an ordinary tool that her chakra could restore another person's injuries through a bite. Naruto looked from the fresh skin between the scars to his shallow cut. He wrapped his arm tighter instead. He told her that she was the one who could barely stand, so using her chakra for his scratch would be stupid. The girl did not answer. Her eyes stayed on the bandage until Naruto finished tying it. Then, Naruto finally asked her name, Karin Uzumaki. He almost dropped the end of the cloth. Naruto asked her to repeat the last part. Karin did. For most of his life, Naruto had heard his own surname spoken by teachers reading attendance lists, shopkeepers checking payment slips, and adults who lowered their voices after he passed. He had never met another person who carried it. Karin looked equally confused when he gave his full name. Neither of them had time to understand what it meant. Naruto still had to find Sasuke and Sakura. Karin still needed medical help. The Forest of Death did not care that two children with the same clan name had just met beneath a rock. Naruto asked if she could walk. Karin tried. Her injured ankle folded after the second step. Naruto crouched with his back toward her. She resisted until the sound of something heavy moving through the brush reminded both of them where they were. Karin climbed onto his back, stiff and uncomfortable, keeping her injured arm away from his neck. They moved north. 10 minutes later, Karin told Naruto he was going the wrong way. Naruto stopped so abruptly that she nearly slid over his shoulder. Karin explained that she could sense chakra. Several signatures were moving through the forest. Two were stronger and familiar, only because she had noticed them earlier during the exam. One was sharp and controlled. The other fluctuated more often, especially when it changed direction. Naruto described Sasuke and Sakura as best he could. Karin could not promise that the signatures belonged to them, but they were the only pair moving as if searching rather than hunting. Naruto changed direction immediately. From that point on, Karin's sensing became part of how they moved through the forest. The direct path crossed a shallow marsh filled with waist-high reeds. Naruto would have walked straight into the wire stretched between two trees if Karin had not tightened her grip around his shoulders. He froze. A thin metal line ran 6 inches above the water. 3 explosive tags had been hidden beneath floating leaves. Karin sensed 3 shinobi in the trees ahead. Naruto backed away 1 step. A kunai struck the mud where his foot had been. 3 rain genin dropped from the branches. Naruto recognized the leader's torn sleeve from the ridge above. This was the same team that had helped split Team 7 apart, and now they had followed him far enough to see an exhausted leaf genin carrying an injured grass kunoichi. They decided he was an easy source of scrolls. Naruto lowered Karin behind a tree and made 8 clones. The rain leader smiled when he saw the technique. He immediately threw a water-filled capsule against the ground. It burst into a spreading sheet of mist. His teammates moved to either side while the leader stayed back. Naruto sent 4 clones forward. 2 hit another wire and disappeared in a flash. The third took a needle in the neck. The fourth reached the rain leader and punched straight through a water clone. The real attackers were already moving through the mist. Karin warned Naruto that 1 chakra signature was coming from his right. He ducked before he saw the attack. A short blade passed over his hair. Naruto caught the attacker's wrist with both hands, but the rain genin was heavier and drove a knee into his stomach. Naruto lost his grip and stumbled backward. A second attacker came from behind. Karin shouted again. Naruto dropped flat. The second attacker kick struck the first attacker in the ribs. Naruto used the confusion to sweep both legs and create another wave of clones. The rain team changed tactics. They stopped trying to hide their bodies and began targeting Karin. That told Naruto everything he needed to know. They had realized she was his eyes. 2 rain genin rushed the tree from opposite sides. Naruto sent clones to intercept, but the leader threw a spread of needles through them. Smoke filled the marsh. Karin could not run. She pulled a kunai with her good hand and pressed her back to the trunk. The first rain genin appeared through the smoke. Karin felt his chakra before she saw his face. She threw her kunai low instead of aiming at his chest. The blade cut the wire wrapped around his ankle pouch. 3 metal capsules spilled into the mud. He looked down for 1 instant. Naruto came out of the mist and hit him in the jaw. The second attacker changed direction toward Naruto. Karin sensed the movement and called left. Naruto turned before the strike landed, took the blow across his raised forearm, and let a clone grab the attacker's leg. Another clone hit the attacker from behind. The rain leader remained near the edge of the marsh. Karin could feel him, forming chakra while Naruto was occupied. She warned Naruto again. Naruto did not look toward the leader. Instead, 3 clones dove into the water and disappeared beneath the reeds. The rain leader completed his technique and sent a burst of compressed water through the place where Naruto had been standing. The 3 submerged clones came up behind the leader at the same time. One caught his arm, one kicked the back of his knee. The third tore the scroll case from his belt. Naruto did not keep the scroll. He threw it into the marsh between both teams. The Rain Shinobi had to decide whether to continue fighting or protect their exam objective. Their leader chose the scroll. Within seconds, the three of them retreated into the trees. Naruto waited until Karin could no longer sense them before letting his clones disappear. The memories from the destroyed clones hit him at once. His stomach hurt. His cut arm had opened again. He was breathing harder than he wanted Karin to notice. Karin noticed anyway. She offered her arm a second time. Naruto refused a second time. He cleaned the cut with water from his canteen and asked her which way Sasuke and Sakura were moving. Something in Karin's expression changed. She stopped arguing about the healing. They continued. By late afternoon, Karin could sense the two chakra signatures clearly. One of them had stopped moving. Naruto increased his pace until his legs shook. He found Sakura first. She was standing on a fallen trunk, with a kunai in each hand, when Naruto burst through the brush, carrying a red-haired stranger. Her first expression was relief. Her second was fury. Sasuke appeared from the trees seconds later. He had a torn sleeve and a shallow cut along one cheek. He looked at Karin, then at Naruto, then at the sky. The team had been separated since shortly after dawn. Sasuke and Sakura had spent most of the day tracking Naruto while avoiding two enemy squads. They still had their original scroll, but they had not captured the second one. The deadline was the next morning. Sasuke wanted to move immediately. Then, Sakura examined Karin's ankle. Her expression became more serious. Karin could not cover the remaining distance to the tower at normal speed. Naruto could carry her, but moving through the forest while carrying another person would slow the entire team. Sasuke calculated that the three of them could still hunt another scroll and reach the tower before dawn if they left within the hour. With Karin, the chance dropped sharply. He suggested finding a defensible hiding place, leaving water and food, marking the location, and reporting it to the exam staff as soon as they reached the tower. It was not a cruel plan. It was probably the best plan, if passing the exam was the only objective. Naruto rejected it. Sasuke reminded him that the forest was full of teams willing to attack injured competitors and animals that could tear through ordinary shelters. Naruto answered that this was exactly why he would not leave her. Sakura looked from one boy to the other. She understood Sasuke's reasoning. She also had her hands on Karin's ankle and could feel how badly it had swollen. In the end, Sakura stood beside Naruto. Sasuke's jaw tightened. He did not abandon them. That decision cost Team 7 the exam. They found no second scroll that night. Avoiding fights was more important than chasing one, while Naruto carried Karin. Karin used her sensing to guide them around two larger teams and a nest of enormous insects. Sakura took part of Karin's weight whenever the terrain allowed it. Sasuke moved ahead, clearing the path and checking for traps. At sunrise, the central tower came into view through the trees. The gates were already closed. They arrived 18 minutes after the deadline. Anko met them outside with two medical shinobi and a face that gave away nothing. She listened to Sakura's report, inspected Karin, and checked the time herself. The rules did not change because Naruto had made a choice he believed was right. Team 7 was eliminated. Karin's team was eliminated as well. Naruto expected the result to hurt less because he had already known it was coming. It did not. Sasuke walked past him without speaking. For the first time, Naruto understood that choosing to help someone could still make another person pay the price. Karin was taken to Konoha Hospital under guard. Naruto was ordered to go home, sleep, and report to Kakashi the next morning. He slept for a few hours, reported as ordered, and went to the hospital the moment Kakashi released him. Karin was awake when he arrived. Her ankle had been set. Fresh bandages covered her shoulder and both forearms. A Konoha medic stood near the window, and an Anbu guard waited outside the door. Karin looked at the guard more often than she looked at Naruto. She knew what protected custody looked like. To her, it did not feel very different from being detained. Naruto brought instant ramen, even though the hospital had already fed her. The medic confiscated it before Karin could decide whether she wanted it. Naruto complained for 5 full minutes. Karin almost smiled. The smile vanished the next day when representatives from the hidden grass arrived. The senior man introduced himself as Reizo, a veteran chunin responsible for medical support teams operating outside Kusagakure. He wore no armor, only a dark travel cloak over ordinary shinobi clothing. His voice remained calm, even when Anko refused to let him enter Karin's room alone. Karin's 2 teammates stood behind him. One of them had a bandage around his ribs. The other kept his eyes on the floor. Naruto had been told not to attend the meeting. He attended anyway by sitting in the corridor until Iruka found him. The conversation inside the room lasted almost an hour. Karin barely spoke. Reizo claimed her team had been separated during an attack, and that her teammates had believed she was following behind them. He described Karin as a valuable member of Kusagakure's medical support program, and said her return was a matter of village responsibility. The medical records made that story harder to accept. The doctors had counted dozens of old bite scars. Several overlapped. Some were months old. Others had healed badly because Karin had been forced to restore other people's injuries while already exhausted. Her chakra network showed the same pattern. She recovered quickly because of her Uzumaki vitality, but repeated forced healing had left her reserves unstable. Konoha did not return her that afternoon. Reizo formally protested. Hiruzen ordered a review. That was how a decision made in a ravine became a diplomatic problem. Kakashi dealt with Team 7 first. He met Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura at their usual training ground. None of them were in the mood for the bell test jokes that had once seemed important. Kakashi treated the rescue and the team failure as separate facts. Naruto had protected an injured competitor, and he had also lost contact with his team at the worst possible time. Sasuke had treated the mission objective as if it could be separated completely from the condition of people around him. Sakura had waited too long to force either boy to explain what they were willing to risk. All 3 had failed to make a team decision before the choice became urgent. Their punishment was simple. They would spend the next month training communication, emergency extraction, navigation, and mission planning until Kakashi could trust them to disagree without splitting apart. Sasuke hated every minute of it. For the first week, he spoke to Naruto only when the exercise required it. Naruto responded by working harder than usual. He stopped charging first during drills because Kakashi repeatedly placed traps where an impulsive lead fighter would trigger them. Sasuke learned to state his plan instead of expecting everyone to follow. Sakura became the person who forced both of them to answer when they tried to ignore each other. They were still angry. They also became better. Naruto visited Karin after training. At first, he filled the room with stories because silence made him uncomfortable. Karin listened and said little. On the 4th visit, she asked why he kept coming. Naruto thought the answer was obvious. She was alone. Karin did not think that was an answer. People had stayed near her before because she could heal them. Other people had stayed because they were ordered to watch her. Naruto was the first person who kept appearing with no clear benefit. He told her he wanted to know why they had the same surname. That question eventually reached Hiruzen. The 3rd Hokage called both children to his office 3 days later. He did not tell Naruto everything about his parents. He did tell them more about the Uzumaki name than either child had ever known. The Uzumaki had once been a large clan from Uzushiogakure, a village famous for sealing techniques and unusually powerful life force. The clan had scattered after their homeland was destroyed. Some survivors went to allied lands. Others disappeared into smaller countries and changed names. Konoha had old ties to them, but Hiruzen was careful about what the surviving records could actually prove. Karin's grass registration included her mother's name and birthplace. Konoha archivists compared those details with old Uzumaki family lists kept from the Alliance years. The records were incomplete, but the known lines separated several generations before either child was born. There was no evidence that Naruto and Karin were close relatives. They belonged to different surviving branches of the same large clan. Naruto stared at the red spiral symbol painted on one of the old documents Hiruzen showed them. He had worn that spiral on his clothes for years, without understanding why it mattered. Karin stared at Naruto instead. The review of her status became harder after that meeting. Kusagakure insisted she was a registered grass genin, and therefore subject to their authority. Konoha's medical division documented signs of prolonged abuse. Reizo argued that the marks came from Karin voluntarily using a rare clan ability to support wounded shinobi. Karin knew that if she stayed silent, adults would argue around her until someone decided where she belonged. Naruto wanted to argue for her. Hiruzen stopped him. The Hokage told Naruto that saving someone did not give him the right to speak in their place. Naruto disliked the lesson immediately. It was still true. At the next hearing, Karin spoke for herself. Her hands shook under the table. She kept them hidden in her sleeves. She described how often injured shinobi had been brought to her. She described being ordered to restore teammates, even when her vision had already blurred from chakra loss. She described the Forest of Death, where her team had used her ability after the attack, taken the scroll, and left once she could no longer keep pace. Then, she asked Konoha for protection. Hiruzen granted temporary protected status for 30 days, while the investigation continued. The order gave Karin shelter and legal protection, while citizenship and leaf rank remained undecided. She needed an escort to leave the village, and restricted areas remained closed to her. Konoha assigned a guard rotation, because Kusagakure still had a legal claim, and because Karin knew enough about both villages to attract attention. The order also stated that if either village requested formal arbitration before the 30 days expired, Karin's protected status would continue automatically until a ruling or negotiated settlement. Hiruzen wanted no gap in which paperwork could decide a child's location before the dispute was heard. Reizo returned to grass with a formal protest. Naruto thought the hard part was over. He was wrong. Temporary protection created a new problem. Karin needed somewhere to live after the hospital released her. The secure guest residence used for foreign shinobi terrified her. Every room had the same blank walls, the same locked storage, and the same guards outside. Karin slept poorly during the 2 nights she spent there and refused to unpack her bag. Naruto complained to Hiruzen until the Hokage threatened to assign him enough paperwork to make him forget how to speak. Then, Hiruzen surprised him. Konoha owned a modest ground-floor 2-bedroom apartment inside the inner residential district. It had once been used for young clan wards whose guardians were away on missions. It was closer to Iruka's home than Naruto's old apartment, and already had basic security seals. A narrow maintenance crawl space ran beneath the ground floor for drainage pipes and barrier lines, something Naruto ignored the first time it was explained to him. Hiruzen was willing to let Karin stay there with Naruto under strict conditions. Naruto would move out of his 1-room apartment. Karin would have her own bedroom. Iruka would act as their civilian guardian for housing and school matters, while Kakashi remained responsible for Naruto's shinobi assignments. Anko would check Karin's security status and training. For the first month, Anbu would monitor the building from outside. Konoha would cover the apartment, medical treatment, and a basic protected minor allowance until Karin was legally cleared to take missions. Iruka would keep the household account and make sure Naruto did not somehow spend a week's food money on ramen. Personal weapons and extras came from their own allowances or later mission pay. The arrangement placed both teenagers under adult supervision rather than making either responsible for the other. They were allowed to share a protective residence because both had asked for it, and neither had a normal household to return to. The council objected for another reason. Naruto carried the 9 tails, and placing a foreign shinobi near him created a security risk. Hiruzen addressed that directly. Karin could already sense the enormous sealed chakra inside Naruto. She had known something was unusual from the Forest of Death. Separating them would not erase that knowledge. Instead, Karin was required to sign a classified confidentiality order, and the apartment seals were upgraded. Karin agreed. Naruto agreed before Hiruzen finished explaining. Iruka made him listen to the rest anyway. Their first evening together was a disaster. Naruto arrived with 3 boxes, 2 broken kitchen cups, a stack of instant ramen, and more dirty clothing than Karin had believed one person could own. Karin had 1 bag, She unpacked it in less than 10 minutes. Naruto spent an hour deciding where to put a cracked alarm clock. By bedtime, Karin had cleaned half the kitchen because she could not sit still. Naruto became offended because she moved his ramen bowls. Karin became offended because there were 6 empty cups under the sink. Naruto said they were not empty because 2 still contained dried noodles. Karin stared at him until he understood that this did not help. Iruka returned the next morning and found them arguing over a wet towel left on the floor. He made both of them clean the apartment. That became the pattern of the first month. Naruto loved the idea of not coming home to an empty room. He was less prepared for another person to have opinions about how he lived. Karin loved the idea of a door that locked from the inside and a bed no one could take from her. She was less prepared for the fact that safety did not disappear when she stopped working. She woke before sunrise and cooked too much rice. She cleaned whenever she was nervous. She memorized the price of everything in the pantry. She folded her blankets every morning so tightly that they looked unused. Naruto noticed food disappearing. At first he assumed he had eaten it and forgotten. Then he found 3 rice balls wrapped in cloth inside the bottom drawer of Karin's room, along with dried fish and 2 apples. Karin saw him holding the drawer open and went completely still. Naruto understood enough to close it. He did not ask why she was hiding food. The next day, he bought a wooden storage box with a lid that sealed against insects. He put it in the kitchen and told Karin that half was hers. If she wanted to keep emergency food, she could keep it somewhere that would not grow mold under her clothes. Karin called him an idiot for spending money on a box when they already had cupboards. She moved the rice balls into it that evening. Their most serious early fight started after Naruto came home from training with a split lip and bruised ribs. Karin saw him enter and immediately told him to sit down. Naruto obeyed because breathing hurt. Karin checked his ribs with careful fingers. Nothing felt broken. The injury would heal on its own, but Karin pulled back her sleeve anyway. The old bite marks were still visible. Naruto refused. Karin insisted that the injury was worse than the cut in the forest. Naruto said that did not matter. Karin asked why he hated using her ability. Naruto said he did not hate the ability. He hated the way she acted as if getting hurt for someone else was the same as making tea. Karin heard something different. She heard that the only useful thing she could offer was unwanted. She accused Naruto of pretending to accept her, while treating the one thing that made her valuable as disgusting. Naruto shouted back that he did not need her to be valuable. The apartment went quiet. Karin left the room and shut her door. Naruto sat at the table with an ice pack pressed to his ribs and slowly realized that he had no idea how to fix what he had just said. Iruka found him there an hour later. He listened, then told Naruto that refusing to hurt Karin was reasonable. Expecting Karin to understand his reason without explaining it was not. Naruto knocked on her door that night. He did not give a speech. He told her that if she wanted to use her ability in a real emergency, it had to be her decision. He also told her he would not use it for bruises just because it was faster. Karin opened the door far enough to look at him. She asked what she was supposed to do if she was not healing him. Naruto answered that she could start by helping him figure out how to cook rice without burning the bottom of the pot. Karin called him hopeless. The next morning, she showed him anyway. While their home became less chaotic, their training changed too. Karin was not allowed to join a regular Konoha team while her status remained unresolved. Anko supervised her basic field evaluation and quickly discovered a problem. Karin's sensing ability was excellent for her age. Her control was precise. Her endurance recovered unusually fast. Her actual combat habits were terrible. She had been trained to stay behind teammates, preserve chakra, and heal whoever reached her. When an opponent closed the distance, Karin either froze or tried to retreat in a straight line. She taught Karin to move before finishing a sensory scan. She taught her to throw wire around trees while retreating, to use smoke without blinding herself because she could still sense nearby chakra, and to place explosive tags where a stronger attacker would step, rather than where they were currently standing. Karin lost most practice fights. She stopped freezing. Sakura became interested in the medical side of Karin's ability. The first time, Sakura asked to examine one of the old scars. She waited for Karin to say yes before touching her arm. That tiny pause mattered more than Sakura understood. The two girls began studying together at the hospital library once a week. Naruto joined them twice and was banned after falling asleep on a book about circulatory pathways and drooling on the page. At home, the studying continued. Karin was better at written theory than Naruto. She could memorize chakra terms after reading them twice. Naruto understood things faster when he could move, test, or break them. They developed a routine. Karin explained the principle. Naruto created a few clones and tried it. The clones failed in different ways. Their memories returned to him. Karin corrected the mistake. It was noisy, but it worked. Kakashi noticed Naruto's mission planning improving and immediately placed limits on the method. Memories could teach Naruto what a clone had seen or why a plan had failed, but they did not transfer muscle conditioning or perfect a physical technique for him. More than a handful of different training streams at once left him with headaches, nausea, and confused recall. Naruto tested that warning exactly once with 20 clones, and spent the rest of the afternoon lying under a tree while Sakura laughed at him. After that, he used the trick for planning and short experiments rather than trying to turn every day into 20 days. Anko noticed Karin becoming harder to corner. Living and training near each other exposed weaknesses that isolation had once hidden, and both teenagers improved because the other kept noticing those weaknesses. Their arguments continued alongside the progress. One night, Naruto returned 2 hours later than expected after Kakashi extended a training exercise. Karin was waiting outside the building. She had spent the entire time tracking Naruto's chakra from across the village. Naruto became furious. He had spent his childhood watched by adults who whispered about him. The apartment was the first place he had ever considered fully his. The idea that Karin could follow his movement whenever she wanted made his skin crawl. Karin could not understand why he cared more about privacy than the possibility of something happening to him. Their argument woke the family across the landing. Iruka was called again. This time, he refused to choose a side. Naruto had a right not to be monitored every hour. Karin had spent years learning that people who left did not always come back. They needed a rule. Karin agreed not to track Naruto inside Konoha unless there was an emergency or he had asked her to. Naruto agreed to leave a written note when training changed his expected return time. If he could not do that, he would send a clone or messenger when possible. It felt ridiculous to Naruto for exactly 3 days. On the 4th day, he was delayed by a mission report and found Karin eating dinner instead of standing outside waiting. He understood the point. 30 days passed. Kusagakure did not withdraw its claim, so Karin's protected status continued under Hiruzen's original order. Raizo returned to Konoha with legal documents, witness statements, and a new argument. Karin had been registered as part of Grass Medical Support since childhood. He claimed her ability had saved dozens of shinobi, and that removing her weakened a small village that could not afford Konoha's resources. He never called her property. He did not need to. Every number in his report treated Karin's body as part of a military supply calculation. Hiruzen requested formal arbitration under the compact that governed disputes involving foreign shinobi attending examinations on another village's territory. Both daimyo approved a neutral civilian magistrate and 2 shinobi advisors who belonged to neither Konoha nor Kusagakure. Until they ruled, neither village could move Karin across the border by force. That changed the balance. Kusagakure could pressure Karin privately. It could not easily explain the hospital records to neutral witnesses. Reizo understood that too. The pressure around Karin became quieter after that. One useful piece of evidence arrived from an unexpected direction. Before the Grass delegation left Konoha, the teammate who had kept his eyes on the floor outside Karin's hospital room slipped a sealed statement to the exam administration. He admitted that their field orders treated Karin's healing chakra as a resource to preserve until the team needed it, and that Raizo had told them before the exam to protect their scrolls even if Karin became too exhausted to continue. The boy did not claim he had wanted Karin dead. He admitted that he had obeyed. His statement did not settle the case, but it made Reizo's version harder to maintain. Other letters arrived from Grass, asking Karin to reconsider. One former teammate wrote that injured shinobi were dying because she had left. Another letter accused her of betraying the people who had fed her after her mother died. Karin read every letter. Then she hid them under her mattress. Naruto found out because her sleep became worse. His first instinct was to burn the letters. He carried the stack into the kitchen before remembering Hiruzen's lesson. He put them on the table instead and asked Karin what she wanted to do with them. Karin burned them herself, while Naruto stayed beside the table and let the decision remain hers. Kusagakure then shifted from letters to surveillance. 2 shinobi entered Konoha using merchant credentials and spent 3 days mapping the streets around Karin's apartment. They never approached her. They never crossed a restricted barrier. An Anbu patrol caught one near a rooftop water tank after Karin sensed the same unfamiliar chakra twice in one day and reported it to Anko. The captured man carried no grass forehead protector. He did carry a packet of powdered herbs designed to dull a sensor's concentration, and a sketch of the apartment block. The second man escaped. Kusagakure denied involvement. Hiruzen increased security. Maintenance access to the block was restricted to named crews. Exterior seals were checked twice a day, and the night patrol route was changed, so no single schedule could be learned from observation. Naruto reacted badly. He asked Kakashi whether Karin should stop training outside. Then he asked Iruka whether the windows could be sealed. Finally, he went to Hiruzen and suggested that Karin be kept inside the protected district until the arbitration was finished. Karin heard about the request from Anko. She waited until Naruto came home. The fight lasted less than 5 minutes and did more damage than any of their earlier arguments. Karin told Naruto that Reizo wanted to control where she went because he claimed it was necessary. Naruto was doing the same thing with better intentions. Naruto said someone had been watching their home. Karin said it was her home too. Naruto said he was trying to keep her alive. Karin's hands tightened around the back of a chair. Then she gave him the one sentence he could not argue with. "You saved me once. You do not own the rest of my life." Naruto left the apartment before he said something worse. He spent half the night on the roof of the academy. Kakashi found him there because Naruto was not difficult to find when he was angry. Kakashi listened and pointed out that Naruto had repeated the same mistake he made in the Forest of Death. He had decided what everyone else should risk, then announced the decision after making it in his own head. The difference was that this time, Karin was strong enough to refuse him. Naruto went home before sunrise. Karin had fallen asleep at the table, with one of her training manuals open beneath her arm. Naruto did not wake her. He wrote a short apology and left it beside the book. The next afternoon, he did something more useful. He went with Karin to Anko and asked what training she needed to survive an attempted abduction. Anko gave both of them a list. For the next 6 weeks, their training became practical. Karin learned how to recognize sensory suppression fields by the way nearby chakra signatures bent or disappeared at the edges. She practiced fighting inside smoke, where her local sensing gave her an advantage. She learned how to carry wire under both sleeves and how to use a simple explosive tag to break a grip or destroy a barrier anchor. Naruto learned not to fill every space with clones immediately. Against someone trying to capture one target, too many uncontrolled clones could block Karin's movement and hide enemy attacks. Kakashi taught him to create smaller groups with assigned purposes, usually 2 scouts, 4 interceptors, 1 decoy group, and 1 reserve. Anko also made them walk the apartment block with a barrier technician and identify every legitimate seal, drain access, service hatch, and roof anchor. Naruto complained that knowing the plumbing was not ninja training. Anko made him crawl through the maintenance space until he stopped complaining. Karin and Naruto also developed hand signals because shouting directions during an ambush told the enemy what they knew. At first, they argued over every signal. By the end of the month, they could cross a training field full of traps without speaking. Anko tested them once, by replacing half the practice tags with bags of flour. Naruto ignored Karin's stop signal, hit the wrong wire, and emerged white from head to sandals. Sasuke looked at him for several seconds and said the disguise was an improvement. Even Karin laughed hard enough to lose track of the next trap. Sasuke occasionally joined the serious exercises. His anger over the failed Chunin exam had cooled into something more useful. He still believed Naruto had handled the situation badly. He no longer believed saving Karin had been a mistake. Sparring with Karin changed his opinion of her too. The first time they fought, Sasuke defeated her in less than a minute. Karin could sense his movement before she saw it, but sensing did not make her body fast enough to respond. The second time, she lasted 3 minutes by forcing him through wires and smoke. The third time, she predicted the direction of his body flicker and nearly caught his ankle with a trap. Sasuke still won. He stopped treating her like someone Naruto had dragged out of the forest. Sakura became the one who patched up their training injuries. She had begun studying medical basics seriously, partly because Karin's condition had shown her how dangerous healing could become when the healer was treated as expendable. The group that had entered the Forest of Death months earlier would not have recognized themselves. Those changes shaped every decision they made when Raizo finally made his last attempt. The neutral arbitration was scheduled for a Monday morning. On Sunday night, rain covered Konoha and emptied the streets early. Raizo had spent weeks preparing for a result he could no longer control. The surveillance operative, who escaped the earlier Anbu sweep, had copied a night maintenance seal before security procedures changed. By itself, the copy was now useless. Reizo's people solved that problem by bribing a civilian subcontractor who serviced drainage lines near the protected district. The man did not know Karin was the target. He believed he was selling a crew schedule, the name of a legitimate supervisor, and a blank repair authorization. Raizo's team used those details to forge a specific emergency work order, then reported a false waterline rupture 2 blocks east that supposedly threatened an underground barrier conduit. The nearest municipal crew and 1 barrier patrol were redirected long enough for 4 disguised operatives to enter through the service gate. They already knew every useful utility point from the earlier surveillance. In less than 2 minutes, they split around the building and fixed dormant suppression anchors into 2 drainage housings, beneath a roof gutter and inside a tool case beside the rear alley. The anchors carried no active chakra until Reizo triggered them together. A covered repair cart with a forged outbound pass waited near the same service route. Reizo's plan depended on suppressing Karin, moving her into the cart and leaving before the false water emergency was exposed. Once the anchors activated, the forged seal would burn out and the route could not be used again. The operation had 1 narrow window. Reizo had planned to take that window while Naruto was away. Kakashi's evening training was scheduled to run past midnight, and the grass team had confirmed it twice. A damaged target dummy and a sudden downpour ended the exercise early. Naruto returned almost 40 minutes before anyone expected him. By then, Raizo's operatives were already inside the block. The anchors were in place, and the false water emergency had started. Aborting would mean leaving physical evidence around the most protected apartment in the district, while the arbitration opened in a few hours. Reizo chose to continue. Naruto had just removed his sandals when Karin raised one hand. She was at the kitchen table reviewing a map for her next field assessment. Iruka had visited that evening and left a pot of soup on the stove because he no longer trusted either teenager to eat properly during stressful weeks. Karin's eyes shifted toward the window. 4 unfamiliar chakra signatures had entered the block. A 5th felt familiar. Karin stood so quickly that her chair struck the wall. She knew the 5th chakra, Reizo. Then every signature outside the apartment disappeared. They had not moved away. They had vanished from Karin's senses at the same instant. The 4 anchors activated together before she could shout. Black ceiling marks spread across the outer wall and flashed once beneath the rain. An operative cut the building line through the service box, and the apartment lights went out. The security tag beside the door died. Not because the attackers had broken Konoha's seal from outside, but because the suppression square isolated it from the barrier network that was supposed to carry its alarm. A pressure settled over Karin's senses like thick cloth. She could still feel Naruto 3 steps away. She could feel weak traces within, perhaps 20 meters. Beyond that, Konoha had vanished. Naruto understood from her face. He made 6 clones, not 50. 2 moved to the rear window. 2 took the hallway. 2 stayed close to Karin. The front door exploded inward. A metal cylinder rolled across the floor and released gray smoke. Naruto kicked it back through the doorway before the room filled completely. The suppression field was not one technique centered on a single shinobi. It was a square created by the 4 anchors Raizo's people had hidden around the building. The apartment's own security was still intact inside the square, but it could not reach Konoha's outer network while all 4 points held. Break 1, and the field would become unstable. Break 2, and the pulse would be large enough for the barrier division to notice even through the isolation. Karin signaled 4 corners. Naruto nodded. 3 new clones went through the back window. The real Naruto stayed with Karin. Reizo entered through the broken front door. He wore dark field clothing and a cloth mask over his mouth. Rainwater ran from his sleeves onto the floor. 2 operatives moved behind him, one high and one low, giving Naruto no clear lane to attack. Reizo told Karin that the arbitration would destroy her future in grass. He said Konoha wanted her because of her bloodline, and that Naruto's presence had made her too trusting. Karin did not answer. She was sensing the floor. One of Reizo's operatives was feeding chakra downward through his foot. Karin recognized the pattern a fraction of a second before the technique activated. She grabbed Naruto's sleeve and pulled. The wooden floor where he had been standing rose in a jagged ridge. Naruto jumped with the movement, instead of fighting it. He planted one foot on the rising boards and launched himself over Reizo. A clone appeared behind him at the same moment. Reizo ducked the clone's punch and drove an elbow into its chest. Smoke covered his view. The real Naruto landed near the doorway and kicked the lower operative into the wall. Karin moved toward the kitchen. The second operative followed her. Months earlier, Karin would have retreated in a straight line. Now she pulled the wire hidden in her sleeve. The wire was already looped around the table leg from the moment she stood up. She stepped over it. The operative did not. His shin caught the wire. Karin pulled with both hands while turning her body. The man lost balance and struck the edge of the table. Karin threw a kunai toward his shoulder, not to kill him, but to force him to roll away from the door. That gave her space. She ran for the back window. Reizo intercepted her before she reached it. He had moved through Naruto's smoke and ignored the clone attacking his side. His hand closed around Karin's wrist. Naruto saw it. He charged. Reizo twisted Karin behind him and threw 3 chakra-coated wires across the room. 2 cut through approaching clones. The third wrapped Naruto's ankle and pulled him off his feet. Naruto hit the floor hard. Reizo dragged Karin toward the hallway. Karin tried to turn into his grip. He adjusted and locked her elbow against her back. He knew how she fought, because the training she had received in grass had been built around his program. What he did not know was what Anko had taught her afterward. Karin let her free hand drop to her sleeve. She pulled out a small explosive tag. Reizo saw it and tightened his grip, expecting her to throw it. Karin slapped it onto the wall beside them instead. Then she dropped her weight. The blast was small. It was meant for breaking locks and trap anchors, not killing people. The wall burst inward. Reizo's grip loosened as debris struck his shoulder. Karin rolled through plaster and wood into the next room. Naruto cut the wire from his ankle with a kunai. One of his scouting clones reached the first outside anchor and tore the seal from the roof gutter. The suppression field flickered. For one instant, Karin felt Konoha rush back into her senses as a wall of noise. Hundreds of signatures overlapped too fast to separate. Pain stabbed behind her eyes, and she nearly lost her balance. She caught only a few familiar traces nearby before the field tightened again. One anchor down. The flicker was enough. Somewhere outside the block, Konoha's barrier team noticed an abnormal pulse. Reizo knew his time had shortened. He stopped trying to persuade Karin. The next attack was designed to end the fight. One operative threw another smoke cylinder. The second formed Earth-style signs and drove both hands into the floor. Wooden boards buckled as a stone wall erupted through the center of the apartment, separating Karin from Naruto. Karin heard Naruto strike the other side. She could sense him, but the wall was too thick to break quickly. Reizo entered her side of the room with one remaining operative. Karin moved into the smoke before they could surround her. This time the smoke helped her. The operative could not see. Karin could feel his chakra within 12 meters. She stepped around the first strike and cut the strap holding his weapon pouch. He turned toward the movement. Karin threw a cup from the kitchen in the opposite direction. He reacted to the sound. She kicked the back of his knee. He was stronger. He caught her ankle and threw her into the wall. Pain ran through Karin's shoulder. Her vision flashed white. The operative advanced. Karin sensed Naruto on the other side of the stone wall, creating clones. Then, his chakra signatures began moving downward. He was not trying to break through. He was going under. Karin understood. She retreated toward the kitchen deliberately. The grass operative followed. Reizo stayed near the hallway, guarding the exit. A hand burst through the floorboards beneath the operative. One of Naruto's clones grabbed his ankle. A second clone came through beside it. The operative struck downward and destroyed the first clone. The second caught his wrist. Karin drove her shoulder into his chest. He fell backward, over the broken floor. Naruto himself came up through the hole a second later, covered in mud from the narrow maintenance crawlspace beneath the ground floor. He had remembered the route Anko forced him to learn weeks earlier. Reizo attacked before Naruto could stand fully. The first kick hit Naruto's ribs. The second forced him backward. Reizo moved faster than any of the genin Naruto had fought in the exam. He did not waste motion on clones he could avoid. He kept the stone wall to one side, so Naruto could not surround him easily. Naruto sent 3 clones high. Reizo threw wire and destroyed 2. The third was a feint. Karin felt the real Naruto move left through the smoke. Reizo did not. For several seconds, the room became a fight based on information. Reizo saw shapes. Karin felt chakra. Naruto trusted her signals. Karin tapped 2 fingers against her thigh. Naruto ducked. A wire passed above his head. She closed one fist. Naruto stopped instead of charging. A needle struck the wall where his neck would have been. Reizo realized Karin was guiding him and changed targets. He threw a kunai toward her face. Karin leaned aside, but the blade cut her cheek. Reizo used it. He crossed the room and drove a palm into Naruto's chest, hard enough to throw him against the stone wall. Naruto tried to rise, and his left arm failed to support him. A needle was lodged beneath his shoulder. His fingers became numb. Karin sensed his chakra stutter. She reached him and pulled the needle free. Naruto tried to tell her he was fine. His tongue was already slowing. Karin knew the compound was not meant to kill him. It was a fast chakra suppressant, designed to remove him from the fight. She also knew they did not have time to wait for a medic. Karin pulled back her sleeve. Naruto shook his head. Karin told him this was an emergency, and more importantly, it was her choice. For months, Naruto had refused to treat her body like equipment. That refusal was exactly why Karin could make the decision now without feeling owned by it. Naruto bit down once. Warm chakra flooded into him. The transfer did not remove the suppressant from his blood, but it restored enough chakra and vitality for his fingers to move again and his breathing to steady. The effect would not last forever, but they only needed a few more minutes. Karin's knees weakened, but she stayed upright. Reizo's attention fixed on the fresh bite mark, and then on her face. His expression made his old belief obvious. Karin's value, to him, still came from what her body could do for other people. Karin had made the choice herself, and that changed the meaning of the act completely. Naruto stood. He did not thank her with words. There was no time. He formed the shadow clone sign. 12 clones filled the broken apartment. This time, they had specific jobs. 4 attacked Reizo from the front. 3 moved for the second barrier anchor Karin could faintly sense through the floor. Two pulled the injured grass operative away from the exit. Two protected Karin. One stayed behind the stone wall as reserve. Raizo cut through the first attackers. He knew the clones were hiding the real Naruto. What he did not know was that Naruto was not trying to hide from Karin. Every clone carried nearly the same chakra signature, so Karin could not simply search for a different one and call it the real Naruto. Instead, she held a continuous sensory lock on Naruto's original chakra from the instant before he created the clones. Their training had taught her to keep that lock even when identical signatures crossed around it. As long as she never lost the thread, she knew which body had begun as Naruto. Raizo had no such reference. She signaled right. The real Naruto moved right, while three clones made the opposite choice look more important. Raizo turned toward the larger group. Naruto came from his blind side. Raizo still reacted fast enough to block the first punch. The reserve clone came through the hole in the floor and caught Raizo's rear leg. For the first time, Raizo lost his base. Karin threw her wire around his weapon arm and pulled. Naruto drove his shoulder into Raizo's chest. All three hit the floor. Raizo tried to form a hand sign. Naruto trapped one wrist. Karin tightened a wire around the other. Two clones pinned his legs. Outside, a second barrier anchor broke. Karin did not let her senses explode outward this time. She narrowed them to the block. The suppression field collapsed. She felt Kakashi on the roof, Anko entering from the rear alley, and 6 Anbu signatures surrounding the building. The operative from the roof was already unconscious beside a broken anchor. 2 more had been injured inside the apartment. The 4th tried to abandon the alley tool case and run when the field failed, but an Anbu pair caught him before he reached the next street. Raizo stopped fighting. The attack had lasted less than 5 minutes after the door came down, but the preparation behind it became clear over the next several hours. Raizo carried one document that mattered immediately. It was a mission scroll, sealed with the mark of a Kusagakure intelligence office. The orders described Karin as a priority medical asset and authorized covert recovery if legal transfer failed. He carried no convenient ledger explaining every payment and contact. His 4 operatives were searched separately. The false maintenance equipment was seized, and the bribed subcontractor was arrested before dawn, after investigators matched his work authorization to the service gate record. Kusagakure denied that its village leader had approved the operation. Raizo was described as an officer who had exceeded his authority. Hiruzen did not believe every part of that explanation, but forcing a smaller village to admit an official kidnapping attempt would create a conflict neither side needed. He did not return Karin. The sealed recovery order, the captured operatives, the forged entry documents, the hospital records, and the statement from Karin's former teammate made the legal position impossible for Kusagakure to defend, without exposing far more than it wanted examined. The neutral arbitration never needed to issue a final ruling. Kusagakure withdrew its formal demand in exchange for Konoha not publishing the full intelligence order to neighboring villages. Raizo remained in Fire Country custody, pending negotiations. Karin received permanent asylum. Her legal status no longer depended on temporary protection. She could apply for Konoha residency, train under Leaf instructors, and eventually earn a Leaf forehead protector if she passed the same field requirements expected of other shinobi. When Hiruzen handed her the document, Karin read every line twice. Naruto stood beside her and managed not to interrupt. At the bottom of the final page was a space for Karin's signature. She signed her own name. That night, they returned to a temporary apartment because their home was still being repaired. The village security budget covered the structural damage because the attack had succeeded through a breach in Konoha's own protection system. Naruto still insisted that Raizo personally owed them a kitchen table. Karin said Raizo owed them a wall, 2 chairs, a window, and half a soup pot. Naruto argued that the soup pot had already been cracked. Karin said that was irrelevant. Iruka listened to the argument from the doorway, checked the temporary housing ledger, and decided the household was recovering normally. Karin placed the asylum document inside her own desk, instead of handing it to any adult for safekeeping. The next morning, She went with Anko to inspect the repairs and complained that the new window latch was worse than the old one. The attack also opened a second investigation, though not because Reizo had carried every answer in his pocket. One captured operative admitted that the team had staged from a rented repair workshop near the Western Service Road. ANBU searched it, under Hiruzen's order. Most of what they found was ordinary infiltration equipment, spare clothing, herb powder, and burned scraps of coated paper. A locked floor compartment held something more useful. There were partial payment records for the apartment surveillance, copies of requests for blood samples and medical data, and a commercial name used by an outside payer. Red Reed Trading did not appear in Fire Country's legitimate merchant registry. The surviving records mentioned unusual vitality and Uzumaki traits, but they did not reveal who controlled the company. Reizo refused to explain the connection. Hiruzen assigned the material to a small intelligence cell. Karin was told the truth, but she was not made responsible for solving it. The cell began tracing merchant fronts, supply routes, and account marks, while Karin returned to the life she had fought to choose. The months after the attack brought fewer threats and more ordinary work. Karin returned to training as soon as her shoulder healed. She passed Konoha's basic field assessment on her second attempt. The first attempt failed because she tried to sense the entire training ground at once, drowned herself in overlapping movement, and allowed an instructor to close the distance. On the second attempt, she narrowed her focus, moved while scanning, and led a 3-person practice squad around 2 ambushes before capturing the target flag. Anko signed the result. Karin received a provisional Konoha identification card. Her first paid field assignment came several weeks later. She joined 2 young Leaf Shinobi, escorting a records courier to a border post. Naruto was not on the team. Anko was not hiding nearby. For the first hour, Karin hated how exposed that felt. The mission looked boring until Karin sensed 4 people pacing them from the woods. The signatures kept stopping whenever the courier stopped, then spreading apart again. Her teammates wanted to hurry toward the border post. Karin remembered the forest of death and refused to let urgency make the choice for the entire group. She explained what she felt and asked the courier whether the records were worth fighting over. They were duplicate tax maps, important but replaceable. That changed the plan. Karin led the group off the main road toward a shallow quarry where only 2 approaches remained open. She tied wire between broken stone markers, while one teammate prepared smoke tags and the other hid the courier behind a ledge. When the pursuers finally rushed them, Karin did not try to overpower anyone. She sensed the first attacker moving around the smoke, pulled the correct wire, and dropped a stack of loose quarry baskets across his path. Her teammate caught him. A second attacker tried to circle wide. Karin called the direction early enough for the other Leaf Genin to intercept. The remaining 2 fled when they realized the courier was not trapped on the road. The fight lasted less than a minute. Karin's hands still shook afterward, but she had made the plan, explained the risk, and trusted people who were not Naruto to carry their parts. At the border post, the team leader signed her mission report without adding a note about her healing ability. Karin read the page twice anyway. Later that year, after additional mission law classes and supervised fieldwork, Karin earned the right to wear a leaf forehead protector. She did not throw away the grass protector. She kept it wrapped in cloth at the bottom of a drawer. It was part of her life. It no longer decided what came next. Team 7 changed as well. Their failed Chunin exam remained a sore point for months, especially for Sasuke, but Kakashi refused to treat failure as wasted time. He gave them harder missions once their teamwork improved. Their communication drills became instinct. Sakura stopped waiting for the boys to settle every disagreement. Sasuke learned that a mission plan could change without becoming weakness. His private reason for wanting strength had not disappeared. The brother who destroyed his clan still existed somewhere beyond Konoha, and Sasuke still intended to become strong enough to face that past. What changed was his belief that teammates only slowed him down. Kakashi made him prove progress through missions, judgment, and control rather than reckless shortcuts. Naruto's old promise to become Hokage also remained. It became less abstract as Kakashi forced him to read briefings, understand why missions were assigned, and take responsibility when his choices affected civilians or teammates. Naruto still wanted everyone to acknowledge him. He was beginning to understand that a Hokage had to make decisions people could survive. The 3 members of Team 7 did not repeat the same exam that season. They were too busy becoming the team they should have been before entering the forest. At home, Naruto and Karin became less dramatic in ways neither noticed at first. Karin stopped folding her blankets, as if an inspector would punish her for a wrinkle. The emergency food box remained in the kitchen, but eventually it held ordinary snacks instead of survival rations. Naruto started washing bowls before dried noodles became part of the ceramic. He still left towels on the floor. Karin still threatened to throw them out the window. Naruto learned to knock on her door. Karin learned that a closed door did not mean someone was preparing to leave. They kept the rule about sensing. Karin did not track Naruto around the village without a reason. Naruto left notes when missions or training changed his schedule. Sometimes the note contained useful information. Sometimes it simply said Kakashi was late again. They began taking separate missions, which forced Karin to work without Naruto beside her, and forced Naruto to care about someone without following her everywhere. The first time Karin left Konoha for a 3-day sensor assignment, Naruto checked the mission board twice, even though her route was classified from him. He spent the second evening at Ichiraku because the apartment felt too quiet. When Karin returned, she found 3 empty ramen cups in the trash and called him pathetic. She had also returned with her own mission stipend. She used part of it to repay the household account for a new set of wire, bought dried plums for Naruto, and put the rest into a small savings envelope Iruka had helped her open. The money mattered to her because nobody could reduce it from a debt she supposedly owed for being fed. Naruto told her the apartment had clearly suffered from her absence. Karin rolled her eyes and handed him the dried plums. Naruto ate half the bag before dinner. Ordinary routines began taking up more space than emergencies, and both teenagers grew with them. Naruto's shoulders broadened. His clone control improved. He learned to use smaller groups of clones with more purpose instead of treating every problem like a wall that needed to be buried under bodies. His missions with Team 7 took him farther from Konoha and exposed him to people who did not know the Nine-Tails story attached to his name. Karin became one of the strongest young censors in her age group. She still lacked the raw speed of fighters like Sasuke, but she stopped trying to copy them. She built her style around information, traps, wire, and positioning. In team exercises, she often knew where a fight would happen before the other side realized they had been found. Once her residency was secure, the Censor Division even offered her a small room near its training hall. Karin spent a week considering it. She finally declined because she preferred the apartment, not because she had nowhere else to go. Naruto did not argue either way. That mattered to both of them. Sakura continued medical training and helped Karin develop safer ways to transfer small amounts of chakra through direct contact. The bite healing remained Karin's strongest emergency ability, but it was no longer the first solution anyone reached for. During one hospital exercise, a tired Chunin jokingly asked Karin to erase 3 days of soreness before his next assignment. Karin told him to sleep. Sakura laughed so hard that the supervising medic sent both girls back to work. Over the next 2 years, missions and ordinary days accumulated around them. Naruto spent more time asking Kakashi why a village accepted one contract and rejected another. He hated the paperwork and kept reading it because becoming Hokage no longer sounded convincing if he understood nothing about the job. Sasuke trained with the same impatience he always had, but he stayed with Team 7 because their harder missions gave him opponents who adapted, teammates who challenged his plans, and a teacher who could still expose his mistakes. Karin built a circle outside the apartment through the Censor Corps and hospital library. Her biggest fights with Naruto changed with him. At 12, Karin had feared that Naruto would leave. At 14, she became angry when he acted as if he had to solve every dangerous problem personally. At 12, Naruto had hated the idea of Karin monitoring him. At 14, he trusted her enough to ask for her senses when he knew something felt wrong. They still irritated each other constantly. Karin hated how Naruto volunteered for difficult missions before rating the full briefing. Naruto hated how Karin could win an argument by listing every stupid thing he had done during the previous month with perfect accuracy. Their friends noticed another change before they did. Sakura noticed Naruto stopped talking about girls the way he had when they were younger. He still joked, but his attention always returned to whether Karin had eaten before a late mission or whether she needed new wire from the weapons shop. Sasuke noticed that Karin could insult Naruto in ways that would start a fight if anyone else tried them. Iruka noticed both of them had begun referring to the apartment as home, without specifying whose home it was. Kakashi noticed everything and wisely said almost nothing. The moment Naruto understood his own feelings did not happen during a battle. It happened after a boring escort mission. He had spent 9 days accompanying a Fire Country surveyor through mountain roads. The only attackers were ordinary bandits who had mistaken the survey equipment for tax money. By 14, Naruto was far beyond them. 4 shadow clones disarmed the group in less than a minute, and the mission continued before the surveyor finished complaining about the delay. What wore Naruto down was the rain. It rained for 6 days. His clothes never dried completely. The surveyor snored. The food was terrible. On the final night, Naruto lay beneath a leaking roof in a roadside inn and realized he was counting how many hours remained until he could complain to Karin about all of it. He imagined her telling him that the rain was not personally attacking him. He imagined her making tea while pretending not to listen. He imagined the kitchen table that had been replaced after Reizo's attack, the scrape on one corner from the day Naruto dropped the training weight, and the stack of mission reports Karin always left too close to the stove. Naruto had wanted the entire village to acknowledge him for as long as he could remember. Somewhere along the way, returning to one particular person had become just as important. He did not know what to do with that realization. So he did what Naruto usually did when a thought became uncomfortable. He went to sleep. Karin's realization came several weeks later and annoyed her much more. Naruto was sparring with Sasuke at Training Ground 7. Karin had gone there to deliver a sensor report to Kakashi. She arrived in time to see Sasuke drive Naruto backward with a fast combination, and Naruto answer by using 2 clones to change his angle. Karin had watched Naruto fight hundreds of times. That afternoon, she noticed how much he had grown. His movements were cleaner. He no longer threw every punch with his entire body. He laughed when Sasuke nearly caught him with a sweep, then adjusted and tried the same mistake a different way. Karin stood beside Sakura for almost a minute before realizing she was still watching him. Sakura noticed. Karin left the training ground early. For the rest of the week, she became irritated every time Naruto entered the kitchen. Naruto assumed she was angry about his sandals. That made her more irritated. Nothing changed immediately. They continued training, working, arguing, and giving the feeling time to become clear. Years of living together had taught both of them to make important choices after fear had settled enough for them to think. The change became impossible to ignore during Karin's first long-range assignment. A Konoha border station had been receiving false chakra readings from the hills north of the Land of Fire. Karin was selected as part of a sensor team sent to identify whether the signals came from smugglers, enemy scouts, or damaged barrier tags. The mission was scheduled for 12 days. Naruto helped Karin pack and asked only when her team expected to return. Karin paused with one folded shirt in her hands, then finished packing with a small smile he never noticed. The mission lasted 17 days because heavy storms flooded 2 roads. Karin returned after sunset with mud to her knees and a bandage around one hand. Naruto was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read a mission manual. He had known from the gate report that her team was back. He had not gone to find her. He had kept their old rule. Karin opened the door and placed her pack on the floor. Naruto looked up. For several seconds, neither of them said anything useful. Then, Naruto complained that she was 5 days late. Karin told him to argue with the weather. Naruto stood, walked across the room, and hugged her. He had hugged friends before. This was different, because he became aware of it halfway through and had no idea where to put his hands afterward. Karin froze for the same reason. Then she laughed into his shoulder. Naruto pulled back and immediately started talking about dinner. Karin let him. The conversation they were avoiding happened a month later. They had argued that morning because Naruto had accepted a dangerous tracking mission before checking the departure date. The mission would keep him away during Karin's final evaluation for full Censor Corps status. Karin accused him of never reading anything before volunteering. Naruto accused her of treating schedules like sacred documents. They spent the afternoon separately. That evening, Naruto found Karin on the roof, watching lights come on across Konoha. He sat beside her, with enough space between them to make the distance obvious. Naruto told her that he was taking the mission because the missing patrol included 2 genin, not because he cared more about it than her evaluation. Karin said she knew. That was why she was angry. She knew exactly what kind of person he was, and she knew she would never be able to ask him to stop helping people just to make her feel safer. Naruto looked at his hands. Years earlier, he would have promised to come back, as if wanting something strongly enough made it certain. Now he said something harder. He said he would prepare properly, follow Kakashi's plan, and do everything he could to return. Karin accepted that answer. Then, Naruto admitted that when he thought about returning, he thought about her. The sentence sat between them for several seconds. Karin's face warmed. She told him that was inconvenient. Naruto asked why. Karin looked toward the village instead of at him. Because I think about you too. They stayed on the roof until the evening wind became cold, then went downstairs and burned the rice because both were distracted. Each blamed the other, and the familiar argument made the new admission easier to carry. Naruto left on his mission 2 days later. He returned 11 days after that. Karin passed her censor evaluation while he was gone. The first person she showed the new identification badge to was Naruto. The first person Naruto told about finding the missing genin alive was Karin. Their relationship changed gradually after that. They began spending time together for reasons beyond training, studying, and household routine. Naruto learned that asking Karin to eat ramen counted as a date only if he actually said it was one. Karin learned that correcting his table manners during a date did not stop it from being a date. Their separate rooms remained. Their separate missions remained. So did the arguments. What changed was that neither of them confused staying close with being unable to stand alone. Karin had her own work, friends, money, and the option of other housing. Naruto had Team 7, his Hokage goal, and missions that could keep him away for days. They still returned to the same kitchen because they wanted to. By the time they were 15, the apartment that had once required Anbu monitoring looked ordinary from the street. The barrier seals remained. The repaired wall showed slightly newer wood than the rest. Karin's plants occupied the window ledge. Naruto's training jacket usually hung over the wrong chair. 2 pairs of shinobi sandals waited by the entrance. One evening, Naruto returned from a late patrol and opened the door quietly because he expected Karin to be asleep. She was at the table, finishing a report. She looked up, saw mud on his sandals, and immediately told him not to take another step. Naruto stopped with 1 foot in the air. Years earlier, coming home had meant unlocking a silent room and hearing only himself. Now, Naruto reached for a cleaning cloth before Karin could point at it a second time. She returned to her report while he wiped the entrance boards and complained that patrol roads had been designed by people who hated sandals. The repaired wall beside the kitchen still showed slightly newer wood where Reizo's attack had torn through the apartment. Neither of them treated it like a shrine. A shelf stood against it now, crowded with mission folders, a chipped teapot, and 1 small plant Karin kept forgetting to water. The life Reizo had tried to end had become ordinary enough for both of them to argue about mud. 3 weeks after Naruto's 15th birthday, the Red Reed investigation finally produced a usable lead. For almost 2 years, Hiruzen's intelligence cell had followed the commercial name recovered from the repair workshop. Most routes ended at empty companies, paid couriers who knew nothing, or accounts closed before Konoha reached them. The investigators learned only that Red Reed moved medical equipment through small countries and preferred places where missing people attracted little attention. Then, customs officers near the Land of Rivers seized a crate of blood storage tubes bearing the same coded account mark found in the old workshop. ANBU followed the shipment chain instead of confiscating it immediately. The trail led to an abandoned safehouse outside a river town. Inside were medical restraints, copied records from several small hidden villages, and descriptions of 3 missing people. All had unusually strong vitality. 2 had red hair. 1 used the surname Uzumaki. Hiruzen called Naruto and Karin to his office together. Anko was already there. So was Kakashi. A thin intelligence file lay open on the Hokage's desk. Hiruzen explained that Konoha was assembling a small reconnaissance unit. Their first objective was intelligence, not a rescue charge into unknown territory. They needed to learn who Red Reed actually served, where the missing people had been taken, and why someone had been collecting information on scattered Uzumaki survivors. The safe house suggested the network was active beyond one border and had access to records from several small villages. Naruto looked at Karin. He did not answer for her. Karin noticed. She read the first page of the report, then the second. Her fingers stopped beside the description of the missing Uzumaki survivor. The forest of death had once reduced every choice to the next few hours, when she only needed to find water, reach the tower, and avoid being sent back. The file in front of her described a much larger problem, but it did not erase the life she already had. Karin closed the file and told Hiruzen she wanted the mission. He wanted it too. Hiruzen did not approve them immediately. The intelligence cell still had to verify the last supply route. There would be a team briefing, diplomatic clearance, contingency points, and a senior commander with authority to pull them out if the trail turned into a trap. Karin's sensing made her useful. Her knowledge of the old grass medical network might help identify falsified records. Naruto's clone reconnaissance and Team 7 field experience made him useful too. Those reasons did not make either teenager disposable. After years of dealing with them, Hiruzen had no intention of sending them anywhere on enthusiasm alone. Naruto accepted the paperwork with only one complaint. Karin complained about his complaint. Kakashi took the file before they could start another argument in the Hokage's office. Later, that night, Naruto and Karin spread a map of the Land of Rivers across their kitchen table. The same table had once been destroyed because Reizo believed Karin could be carried back to the life she had escaped. Now Karin traced the first route south with her own finger. Naruto studied the border stations instead of pretending maps were optional. Their home was secure behind them. Their next problem waited beyond Konoha's walls. This time, they would leave together, because both of them had chosen to go.